Welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts Chris Noble and Bill Perotzman. Today's episode, Chris and I are tired. We take you on an exploration of this new kind of tiredness, share reasons we feel the way we do, and offer ways we feed the tired parts of ourselves that may be useful for you, too. We finish the podcast with a new kind of guided meditation, one that results in a change in energy for both of us. We'll be talking about all that and much, much more, as always, in these open conversations, here on Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness.
Great.
Say that again. Let's do this.
All right. So what I've been hearing through a lot of these mediums and intuitives, and it does ring true, which is why I'm mentioning it, is that there's a consciousness expansion happening on this planet that is so rapid and has not happened this quickly, maybe ever in the entirety of human history. And, we've talked about this on other podcasts where the ancients talk about the age of the zodiac. It's a 25,500 and a half year cycle. So a long cycle, and it follows the wobble of the earth, right? With the earth rotates on an axis, but the axis is not straight. It's on an angle.
It does that sort of,
exactly.
It's hard to show this in 2D, but
I forget what the angle is. And it's also a very important number that the angle of the axis is, of course. But anyway, so it takes roughly 26, just under 26,000 years for our Earth to do a full rotation on this wobble. And that's where we get the cycles of the zodiac. And I think each cycle or each zodiac cycle is roughly around 2,500 years. I think maybe 3. I can't remember how that divides into 26,000. So anyway, they talk about the rise and fall of consciousness during these cycles. And they say when, we're on this, let's think of it as a sine wave, right? And
that beautiful curve.
Yeah, you've got a wave. You've got a high trough, as they say, or whatever, like a high apex point, and then a low apex point, and then in the middle is like the line, right, of the sine wave. So if you can imagine on the upside of the sine wave, that's where we live in what we would call a golden age of consciousness. And they say that the consciousness is at such a high frequency, and it's such a love-based, highly intelligent consciousness frequency in those golden ages that everyone on this planet is kind of on the level of a Buddha or a Jesus or Moses or whatever. All these, Mary Magdalene or Isis and Osiris. Like, we're talking the top of the top, masters that we've heard about in history on a spiritual level. Everyone's kind of like that. So I mean, we're at an almost unfathomable level of consciousness when you're in the golden age. And this is maybe when the pyramids were built, and these incredible structures that still exist to this day. Anyway, now we're at what would be the bottom of that sine wave.
Great. But we are near the bottom, right? So,
well, we actually got out of the bottom in 2012. So when the Mayan calendar ended, the thing is that the Mayans weren't the only ones. The ancient Chinese, Indian, Native American, of course, a lot of indigenous tribes around the world all knew about this, interestingly enough. But the Mayans were the most famous, certainly, for predicting the end of the calendar, which people misinterpreted as the end of the world. Although not even that necessarily that incorrect of misinterpreting the apocalypse, because we were supposed to go through a bout of solar flares and things like that from our sun, and that would be devastating. We would definitely know it, and it hasn't happened yet, and it's maybe behind schedule or something. But anyway, there's things that all come together here, and what I'm trying to say is that we've moved out of this lower part of the curve of the sine wave, which we would call the Iron Age, which is the lowest level of consciousness. The Hopi Native Americans I believe in Arizona and certain areas of the States, the US, one of the most old tribes to date down there. And anyway, they talk about how basically now that we're moving out of this Iron Age, we lived in 25% spirituality and 75% material. And when we're in the golden age, we're almost like 100% spiritual and almost non-physical in a sense. We've almost transcended the need to be fully physical. So when we're in that golden age, we're maybe, let's say, 15% material, 85, wait,
The balance
whatever the math.
shifts dramatically, right?
It does, yeah. And so right now we're moving back into that. We're moving out of materialism, and we're moving out of the idea that all that exists is this material reality, which we know is not the case. There's more, and we're now learning what that actually is. We're moving out of that back up into this golden age. So we're getting into a higher level of consciousness. We're moving into a place where we are awakening naturally. This is a natural phenomenon. However, I've heard that not just on a natural level, but on a perhaps guided level by who knows what forces, beings, etc., are doing this. But there is an acceleration of consciousness, and supposedly you can almost imagine like this dial. And normally, the dial of consciousness clink clink goes really slowly over time, over thousands of years. And right now, they're saying that we're on such an accelerated consciousness expansion and growth that it's the fastest that's ever happened. So we're expanding potentially back up into a golden age of consciousness many thousands of years ahead of time because of a whole bunch of different reasons that I honestly don't even really fully understand. What the point of all of this is that what a lot of us are experiencing right now, you could call ascension symptoms, symptoms of your consciousness expanding to such a higher frequency that we just don't, everything that we thought was our normal life is just completely crumbling in front of our eyes. And this could be in a very obvious material level, or this could be an internal emotional level. So things like time stops making sense. Well, because time is a linear construct of the material reality, and we all know, especially through quantum mechanics, that time is actually not linear.
Yeah.
And when you move into a fifth density or a fifth dimension of reality, that idea of time starts to become more of like a sphere of possible timelines, present, past, future, all kind of coexisting at once. So if time has started to make a lot less sense, that is one of the ascension symptoms, because we are moving into this higher consciousness. If things like making plans and scheduling things are making way less sense and falling through, and just not to the extent that it used to be, or even the thought of making plans just doesn't feel right anymore in a weird way. You're like, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing next week or tomorrow, for that matter, let alone planning 6 months in advance for whatever that may be. So plans don't make sense. Time doesn't make sense anymore. Internally, you feel like you're literally losing your mind sometimes. Like you just don't, nothing makes sense. We're at a level of confusion almost. And a lot of the time too, like what we thought we wanted to do with our lives, or this identity we would place on our lives of, oh, I'm going to change the world because I'm going to be the best musician, and spreading the seed of consciousness through my music. And if the identities that have helped us feel comforted in the past of, oh, at least I'm doing something, in my life, if those identities feel like they're crumbling and completely dissolving, that's another sign is that. And there's just a whole bunch of things. Fatigue on a level that we don't even understand, because once again, I'm tired. I rested all weekend, and yet I'm exhausted today. I'm like, I had a chill weekend. I didn't do anything, and I wasn't even that stressed. There's nothing that makes sense as to why I'm so bloody tired. But it's because, again, it's these ascension symptoms. Like our frequency is getting cranked up on almost feels like a daily basis. And kind of like when if any of the listeners ever had braces, I grew up with braces.
Yeah. How that tension.
And if each time you go in every other month or two and they crank your teeth and it hurts.
Yeah.
And it's just boom, trying to push them together and form them better and all that stuff. And it's almost like that's what's happening to our souls, our consciousness right now. And then that feeling and that what's going on there transcends into the physical in ways like massive fatigue, confusion. A ton of relationships are falling apart right now. Also, being not speaking your truth. It's now almost impossible to not speak your truth in situations that normally you would have been like, oh, I'll just kind of keep this to myself, and I'm not going to really speak up too much here. Now it's at a point where I'm like, I can almost feel it's coming out of me. I can't even control it. It's like I have to speak my truth. I almost don't have a choice anymore. And this authenticity, like just being your full authentic self used to be something that all the self-help gurus and spiritual gurus were like, that's how you have to be spiritual. Now it's like, that's just how I can't not be authentic anymore. I'm not even trying. It's just happening. Like I don't even have control over these things anymore. So it's just really fascinating. That just sparked when you said you're so tired. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
damn it, Bill, me too. It's crazy. And then I hear some of these people talking about these ascension symptoms, and I don't know how much I believe in all of that, but there's a cord of truth in there that feels truthful. And to be honest, the symptoms that they talk about are bang on.
So just so I put this all in context, so it's a 26,000-ish year cycle from peak to trough and back to peak.
Yes.
Okay, so we're halfway.
Yeah.
But on the
up.
the short side of halfway, headed up again.
Headed up.
Okay. And is this are the symptoms things that affect us whether or not we're aware of all this?
Yes.
So awareness helps, right?
It helps. Always. And I think it affects the people who are ironically more spiritually awakened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the irony, of course, is that the ones that are doing all that hard work to improve themselves, to know themselves, are getting pummeled harder than the people who are a bit more, you could say, asleep, or just a bit more in the third dimensional reality. And things just like, work and, you call normal stresses are just far more, entrenched in that, like that material reality. That matrix material reality, you could say. It's the folks like us who are striving to understand more of ourselves, to improve, to heal ourselves, all that stuff. We're the ones that are feeling it way more because we've opened up ourselves so much to receive more frequency, more information. That means we're also more sensitive. And therefore, these ascension symptoms are typically hitting the healers, it's hitting the spiritual folk, it's hitting, just the people that the self-help, all the people that have just been trying to awaken themselves that much more. It's hitting them harder. But I would say that it's global. And I would say that it's every human is definitely, whether they're aware or not, are feeling it.
Feeling it. Yeah. It's at whatever your receptive level is for that. Like you and I are feeling this as tiredness, but I bet there's other people out there, I don't know, like Wim Hof and other people who are like really doing heavy duty lifting that feel this as excitement.
Yeah, because it's a really exciting change, and I think the Earth is rotating faster now. I believe our Schumann resonance, the frequency, the heartbeat of the planet has shifted a bit as well.
Cool.
So our planet, it's not just humans, it's our planet is shifting and changing. And what we might call something like climate change might be a lot more complicated than we would call under just one little label of climate change. I think this is also, our planet is conscious. Our planet is a living organism. And just like we're living organisms and we're conscious and we're going through this ascension, why would it be any different for our planet? I hear that this is actually a planetary, what's the word I'm looking for? A solar system wide phenomenon. That's
sure. The solar system doesn't orbit in the same orbit forever and ever. It's always shifting. It's always changing.
Exactly.
We're basically just falling in a very controlled direction.
Flying almost. Like
just flying.
Yeah, we're flying really quickly too. You're hurling through space on this planet. That's the funny thing too. Did
you see, and I don't know how this is related, but maybe it is, any photos of the satellite that they smashed into an asteroid last week?
Recent. Oh no.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
It's a test to see if we can shift the orbit of an asteroid enough so that if it were headed directly toward Earth, we could move it.
Mm.
And it'll take a while before they have the data on that. But it's like human beings' first attempt to interfere with, gravity, honestly, and to manipulate gravity in a way that helps to preserve human life on Earth, theoretically, should that ever happen.
Well, we pass through a major asteroid stream twice a year. So it's actually highly likely. Graham Hancock, a great researcher I follow, I watched him do a lecture at University of Toronto many years ago, and he showed us how the Earth literally passes through a cloud of debris essentially twice a year. So, it's something to like be conscious of, not to be living in fear of, but the fact that they're experimenting on how to avoid an asteroid hit is good, is comforting. But here's a really crazy story I heard from a really interesting rocket scientist. So there was a movie that came out when I was in high school, or maybe even earlier. So this is maybe going back like 20 years or so, maybe more, called October Sky. Starred Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah. Great. So Jake Gyllenhaal plays a character called David Adair. David Adair is a real person and is a rocket science prodigy genius who, went to NASA and then a bunch of private aerospace institutions, et cetera. So I've watched him interview on the network called Gaia, and Gaia is fantastic for doing, all the alternative content you could ever imagine that YouTube or anywhere else would probably censor or just not even produce at all. So David Adair has so many stories. This guy, so the guy that we know from October Sky, this rocket science genius, was not just a rocket scientist genius. He was also in contact with extraterrestrials. He got a lot of his information from extraterrestrials. He also was involved in tons and tons of secret government projects, Area 51, even the movie Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind that Steven Spielberg did. There's a couple of scenes that David Adair and the people he worked with were literally consulting with Hollywood on and giving them some info. So this guy is deeply entrenched in some pretty incredible knowledge. And he tells a story of in 2012, July of 2012, which is when everyone thought that this, apocalypse, all this kind of stuff was going to happen. Well, they weren't exactly that far off. So you can look at this up on NASA's website 2 years later. So the event was on 2012 in July. I forget the exact date in July. NASA publishes this in 2014, 2 years later. And basically it's a near miss I think it's a big comet, and it misses the Earth by not much because it passes between our moon and the Earth.
It was about 150,000 miles out.
That is not far when you're talking about space. That's very close. That's close enough to even get pulled into our gravitational pull. Didn't happen. Now that's the story from NASA, which is already incredible that we had such a near miss on just coincidentally what the Mayans thousands of years ago predicted as an apocalyptic end. But they even didn't necessarily, like, people interpreted it as an apocalypse, but the Mayans, I don't think ever really said that. They said it was the end of an age.
Yeah.
So you can interpret that a million different ways. And if you look at how our consciousness is shifting and this old world of how we used to live is dissolving, then that's a great definition of a new age. But so anyway, this asteroid barely hit the planet. But from David Adair's standpoint, and I do take what he has to say with some certain of truth. It's just one person. This is just his account, but it's interesting because he has access to a lot of information most of us don't. And so what he said was that this asteroid was actually dead on going to collide with us. This was not a near miss. This was absolutely on point. And on Earth, a lot of officials, though, were kind of freaking out at what to do. And they still have a lot of advanced technology. The military is, honestly, it's probably at this point, there might even be 100 years in advance of what we have today in tech in terms of what's secretly happening in the military. And I know publicly they say they're at least 50 years ahead. So regardless, there's other technology that they could probably have used to avoid this situation. But regardless, they were scared and they were freaking out a bit. And so they're monitoring this meteorite, let's say, or this comet, and it's heading right for Earth. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it gets bumped. And then all of a sudden it's bumped and then it misses exactly how, like they said, it missed. And what David Adair's opinion was that was some extraterrestrial help, because there are some very wonderful beings out there who have apparently an invested interest in us and have some advanced technology, and they bumped the asteroid just so it missed. And we didn't have a cataclysmic world-ending event, which that would have been, definitely, with that size of asteroid. Absolutely. Extinction level for sure. So thank you, extraterrestrials, if indeed that was what happened. But also so interesting that was happening 2012, July of 2012, just like the Mayans at least hinted at. So I don't know where we're really going with that, but you know what? Actually, the one takeaway is that if we were supposed to have been wiped out, is that we're now on borrowed time, And this is the most beautiful thing, is now we're in a place where we're on some borrowed time to be able to ascend and to actually allow ourselves to go into this golden age and not have to rebuild. Because an extinction level event might not be a full extinction. 12,500 years ago, the end of the last ice age, that wiped out 93% of all life on this planet, all the megafauna, the woolly mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and most of the human population. But enough of us survived. We're still here today. But we had to rebuild, and what we see as civilization starting, in my opinion, is civilization being rebuilt from a much earlier civilization. So instead of having to start off from scratch, which would have happened if we got wiped out in 2012, now we're actually in this almost like a golden opportunity to keep all the tech we have, advance all the tech, but of course advance ourselves spiritually, consciously, and actually create a golden age, and probably create it way sooner than another 12,000 years to get to that golden age, like we talked about the zodiac processional cycle.
Yeah.
So
Why wait?
why wait? And I think we're actually in a really, like, this really could be like an absolute blessing, beautiful opportunity for us, as much as we're exhausted. And honestly, I've just been feeling like crap a lot of these days, emotionally speaking. But overall, I think we're in a beautiful opportunity right now.
Yeah, I really agree with you. And, I don't mind feeling tired. To me, tiredness says that there's some part of me that I need to care for, yeah, that I haven't been properly caring for. And maybe it's not physical rest. Maybe there's some other thing that I crave, that I need to sort of supply myself with to get back into it. And hey, let's bring it on. I have for a long time stopped setting goals, stopped doing all the bigger, better, faster stuff, just turned away from all of that, because if you think about it, all that stuff is what got us here. And here we are, with a whole bunch of issues. I haven't sat down to figure this out, but I'm pretty sure I spend more than half my time feeding the algorithm through various different kinds of activities. And some of them are business activities that I'm supposed to do, right? But a lot of them aren't. I mean, you can't read the news without feeding the algorithm, right? You can't watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast without feeding the algorithm. And then there's the posting and the sharing and the, all the stuff that you have, writing articles and making blog posts and content up the who has time to read all this content, consume all this content? I mean,
I don't.
Not even my closest friends can consume all the content that I make. And I don't feel bad if they don't, because I know that they're inundated like I am. So
true.
And even the devices we use to interact are physically demanding on us. They're taxing on the eyes, they're taxing on the brain. They they interfere with vibrational stuff. So it's no wonder we're tired.
That's a good point too, Bill. I mean, we don't have to get too much into this, but the amount of frequencies that are being emitted, like just even like Bluetooth is 2.4 gigahertz, and a lot of things are connected via Bluetooth. I love the convenience of the Bluetooth earbuds. I do. I really do. I absolutely.
But it's right there, man.
But it's right in my brain.
Yeah.
And that's 2.4 gigahertz, which we know, and there's enough studies, and there's not enough of them, but there's are some that definitely suggest that we don't know the long-term ramifications of these frequencies, just like Wi-Fi, 5G, and a million other things.
Cellular radio frequencies. Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we joked that cell phones cause cancer? Well, they do. And the radiation absolutely contributes to that. And compounded with all these other things. Now, are we going to get rid of this stuff? Of course not. But, as we ascend through these symptoms and actually do evolve as a species, we're going to have to address it and come up with a lot of different ways to live with all these frequencies. One positive thing I've heard is that as we are enhancing and increasing our vibration, as we do ascend our consciousness, it actually ironically makes it easier to live with all these harmful, more radioactive, or not radioactive, but these more harmful EMFs, these frequencies. So that's maybe a positive, but it's something to be conscious of, right? Like, why am I so tired? And why do I have more energy when I'm out in nature, not in the big city?
Exactly. I actually saw somebody posting a study on that. It's like the study, you and I will laugh about this. The study found that going for a walk in the forest was beneficial to mental health.
Wow.
You know, I wish I got money for doing studies like that.
It's the most no-brainer thing ever, but nice
Right.
to have some science
Yeah,
behind it
there's
at
some science
least.
behind that. So of course I wasn't snarky, but I was jocular, let's say, on the post. Hey, now that we have science, everybody can do this, and
Wow.
you know, so at least we've got science support. But it's so far beyond that, and I love the fact that so many people. Now, I don't want to diss science on this because science is sort of keeping our foundation good,
Mhm.
but that foundation is elevating too. And if you still have beliefs that don't align with the science, you're in real trouble. If your beliefs are ahead of the science, you know, good, you're on the right side of the equation. But this is a tough one for a lot of people, and it's not about faith. It's not about God. This isn't a God question. It's just about where's your focus? What's your focus on? Is your focus on trying to hold on to the old stuff, or is your focus on being curious with the new stuff? And that's a huge difference. I've found that the more I hang on to things, the more resistance the more tenacity, I guess, I bring to something, the tireder I am. Because there are times where I just can't hold on anymore. It's too late. That stuff doesn't matter. It's gone. Like going down with the ship. So letting go of that is such a relief. And letting go of that, like we all like to do, to go away for vacation. It takes what, 3 days to let go. And then you can start to sort of reset. Take those 4 days. Even if you only get a day extra on top of the three, but that's a fantastic opportunity. I thought I was relaxing this weekend too. What did we do? We watched movies. We went for a walk a couple of times, but I need to separate myself from the screen. No offense, man. I love talking to you. That's not the point here. But if there was a way to do that was more organic, it
Like
wouldn't
in
be so
real life.
tiring. Yeah, like in real life, it wouldn't be so tiring.
It's
And
true. People talk all the time about Zoom fatigue, right? I mean, that's a real
yeah,
thing we're
it's
encountering
a real
now.
thing. And I've been working on this book, so I'm like at the computer, staring at it, trying to think at the same time. And it's like they work at cross purposes because just the energy, the back energy that's keeping my eyes focused and my fingers going and the mind works and all of that, is that's a lot of CPU cycles. I need like an off-board processor to handle all
Are
that.
you saying that we're computers, Bill?
No,
But we kind of are sometimes.
well, we're
I have to,
computational, but
yeah.
we're also I mean, there's that pattern matching thing, right? But somewhere below the head, uh, other stuff kicks in that's really important. What is that app that writes content now? Jasper.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's an AI app, and you give it, all the keywords you want and some of the topics and whatever, and it makes content for you. It takes no CPU cycles to do that, and yet we spend a lot of time cranking away, just so we can add more content that's at a seventh grade reading level with the right keywords and short sentences and all the other stuff that they tell us we have to have,
Yeah.
right? In order to satisfy the algorithm. I've been reading this great book, Chris. You're going to love this. The book is called Wanting, and it's actually a business book. It's not a self-help book, but it's about why we do what we do and why we want what we want, how our desires work and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And it's all based on the theories of an amazing sort of philosopher, sociologist, anthropologist, I don't know, a guy named Rene Girard who died in like 97. So he's fairly recent. But the ideas of why we want what we want and how we evolve slowly and why that's so are so profound. But he told a story that I think is worth sharing here because it's about being tired. Uh, there's a famous French restaurant somewhere in the south of France up on a high plateau. It's 2 hours from anything. You have to drive and stay overnight if you want to have dinner there. It's that kind of a place.
Oh.
It's too far away from anything to drive home. And it was started by a French chef back in the day, and his son eventually took it over. And on the day when the restaurant got its third Michelin star, the father and the son working together, and the father is so proud, he turned it over to his son, and his son's going to carry on the legacy. Well, when you get a Michelin star like that, the third one, you're basically underneath Michelin's thumbs. and people who you like make tires for a living tell you how you should run your restaurant in order to retain that rating. And this guy realized that doing that was killing him. He no longer could be creative. He spent all his time just sort of feeding the Michelin algorithm, right? And the reason that the story is worth remembering is because this was the first guy ever who called up Michelin and said, I want out. Take me out of your directory. I no longer want to play.
Wow.
And, it took about a year, but they eventually dropped him. But the calls started coming in. It's like, why are you doing this? What's going on? Tell me. And it was like all of a sudden he found himself the leader of a tribe of chefs who were overworked, trying to chase a goal that was no longer theirs.
Wow.
Their goal was in their art, serving amazing food that's innovative to people who want to come and enjoy that in an atmosphere that's amazing and just all of that stuff. And Michelin was sucking the life out of that. So he opted out, and they let him out. And then eventually, it took a few years, but eventually they just came back, right? And they put him back as a star. But he said, if the inspectors come, whatever, he said, I don't care. I don't care.
Beautiful.
I'm in this for me. I'm in this for great food, done the way I want to do it, with the ingredients that I want, serving the people that I love, and it got so much more authentic. And I love that shift, dude, because he shifted from wanting to chase the dream that everybody told him he should chase to wanting to be who it is that he wanted to be. And if that isn't a symptom, right, of the shift, of the change in consciousness, of the pointing up again toward the golden age, I don't know what is. And that's just out of the blue. I mean, somebody said, read this book, Bill. I'm like, okay, fine. And that story is what greeted me. And it lights me up to just tell it, because I feel like I'm in that place. I don't, want somebody telling me, if you do this and this and this and this and this, you're going to be successful and retire, blah, 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 and that's all great. Do that, Bill. And it's like, no way, that just wears me out.
When I hear that stuff now, and I used to be so into this, especially when I had some of my older businesses in my 20s, and I was really into the entrepreneur life.
Oh yeah, nothing wrong with that, right? It's
nothing wrong with it, but
great,
I look back at any of that content that I was consuming of like, okay, 5 easy steps to make your YouTube channel $1 million enterprise, or whatever whatever the catchphrase was. That always got me. I got so into it. I was like, okay, my calendar was so scheduled out. I had things like, what's my 1 month plan, my 6 month plan, my
and your posting schedule, your content creation, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my God, so much planning, so much stuff, all this stuff. It led me pretty much nowhere. And if it did lead to anything, I was strung out, exhausted. I didn't enjoy it anymore. That's for sure. It lost all of the passion, all of the creativity. And I became a slave to trying to attain something that I was being told was what I want versus what I actually want. And then sometimes these days I'm like, I don't even know what I want anymore. I might tell you on a much more basic level what I want, which is I just want to feel free. I want adventure.
Yeah.
Love, of course, all that stuff. But if you're actually asking, like, what do you want? I'm like, a Lamborghini. I'm like, even saying that, I'm like, I don't even think I'd want a Lamborghini. I'd probably maybe rent one for a couple of days, take it on a racetrack, which would be really fun. But to even own one, I'm like, I don't know. So,
I'll just tease this because there's a story about Lamborghini himself in that book.
Oh, great.
And he was one of the early pioneers who said no to some things. And I won't spoil the story for anybody who wants to read the book. But it's funny you should bring up Lamborghini, and also not funny that you should bring up Lamborghini, because he was also a pioneer in this turning the corner, away from what the world calls success to what we know is successful.
Yeah, that's such a big one, right? Like what we're told, like what I've been really, when you talked about earlier, Bill, about letting go, and man, that like surrender and letting go have been unintentionally the biggest themes I think that have been running my life for the last 6 months or so. And just the amount of stuff I've just had to let go of. But then once I do, I mean, oh my God, it's just such an easier way to navigate life and to not take things personally. And so just letting go of this idea of success, letting go of what other people deem as successful. And wow, does that ever not only shift what you actually want, because you start to realize that a lot of what you thought you wanted it's just not what you
It's
wanted.
bullshit. It's
It's
not.
all BS. It's
It's
just
just somebody else told me that I wanted this, and I never really did.
my teacher told me this is what made a successful person. My parents said this is what we would love you to become, or whatever the situation, right? And it's nice because now we're coming into a place where we honestly are asking ourselves, wait, what do I what do I actually want?
I cannot wait, and this is another book. I cannot wait to tell the story of the pandemic, which continues to get more and more interesting and intriguing for me
Totally.
as it gets continually more scary, because I'm so far away from what I'm supposed to be doing that there's no conceivable, like, rational way that it could be successful. On the other hand, there's no other way I can do this. So if I'm a little tired from time to time, people, just don't hate on me.
I think we all are. That's pretty.
I'm spending a lot of energy moving in the direction that I want, and at the same time, a lot of energy trying to hold back, the flood waters that are coming after me. And you got to be powerful in that place, because it's really easy to be swamped and give in, and do what the world says you should be doing. But if you can hold it off long enough, my bet is that this new way that we all are being pulled in is the best way. And that we're seeing the end of whatever the age of industrialism or information, or the neo-enlightenment, whatever that stuff is that we're going to call it back in history, hundreds of years, when they find this podcast and they see me floundering about what to call that. Oh, well, that's what Bill was talking about. But why not? I mean, seriously. And I'd rather be tired for those reasons, because I know I'm not tired for the other ones. I ain't been doing that yet. So I'm tired because I'm doing the new stuff. And maybe I'm not doing it skillfully, or maybe I'm not, whatever. There may be things I need to adjust that'll help give me energy in the process. But one thing that I'm convinced about, and I know this is true because I've used your music for the same reason that you created it. So I know that the energy workers that are out there, whatever their creatives there are giving us content that does feed our souls, that does push us in the right direction. It doesn't tire us out. It doesn't wear us down. It's not, the latest stupid movie that you saw and paid $14 to see at the Cinemax. It's food. That's the way to say it.
It's nutritional.
Fuel that gets us there. And I'm minimizing my content of that other stuff. So if I'm tired these days, I'm tired, man. I'm worn out, but I feel like it's for a good purpose, if that makes sense, Chris.
Totally. It's also because, like, the reason why we can't seem to go back to this way of, well, if I just listen to what the news tells me, or the government tells me to do, or my teachers, or these authority figures, if I just listen, it'll
my
be
real
so
estate
much
license,
easier.
I could.
I'll get my CPA, my accounting thing, and I'll just, nothing against accounting, just I'm just thinking of things that are so obviously not me. Yeah. And if I just do that, it'll be easier. I'll have the stability. I'll blah 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 blah. The reason that we can't do that anymore is because it's this idea of integrity that we really can't. It's like I feel a physical, almost like physically nauseous if I go back into an old way or an old pattern. Right. My body reacts. My body.
It's like, I don't want that.
Hell no.
No way.
Like, hell no. It's not even like, I don't know about this. It's more like, oh God, no.
Yeah, it's like
It's crazy. So actually, one thing that you made me think about on the side of things that are nutritional or are have that people are creating or discovering or rediscovering, more likely, that can really help us on so many different levels, whether it's emotional, mental, spiritual, or physical stresses, pains, all the things that we're moving through. And I don't think we talked about this before, or at least not in super depth, but is the concept of earthing and grounding. And there's a great website everyone should check out called, I think it's just earthing.com, really basic. And there are a slew of really great products. I'm not being paid to say any of this. I wish I was, but I'm going to be ordering my kit soon, so I can't speak from personal experience, but the peer reviewed, there's over, I think, 20 peer reviewed scientific journals that do talk about the incredible benefits of earthing, grounding. And this is going to sound really funny to a lot of you listeners. And I know it will for you, Bill, because really the core concept is having your feet on the ground. Kind of like the study that was, oh, walking in the forest is really good for your health. Like, well, no shit. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
obviously, but just having your bare feet on the ground is so therapeutic. You're absorbing these negative ions from the earth, from the living organism that we are a part of. And ever since the invention of the synthetic shoe back in like the 50s, we've officially disconnected ourselves from the earth, from a daily recharge. If you can think about us as like a Tesla car, but we don't get charged, so we're kind of running on like 5% most of the time and breaking down. And this is because we're not fully charging ourselves back up. So knowing how we live in this modern age, and sometimes with weather too, you're not really wanting to go walk out in the winter with bare feet. Fair enough. So what they've done is they've figured out these ways to quite easily plug different mats, devices. Usually it's like a mat you can
Yes.
lay on or sit
Yes.
on,
Oh,
or
perfect.
little tiny little things you can attach onto certain pain points of your body and
Yeah.
really get a high dose of these negative ions. And you plug it into the damn wall.
Yeah.
And all that does is you got your, at least in North America here, we've got the three socket, plugs, still old, all the same AC current from Nikola Tesla. Thank you, sir. And that third socket that's on the bottom, usually that's a grounding socket. And obviously the reason for that is so you don't blow up the house with electricity. It's a very important socket. But what does that really do? It sends the electric circuit into the earth, into the
Actually into
ground.
the earth. Yeah.
Literally, it's not just a concept called grounding. It's an actual physical thing going into the earth to ground so that you don't blow up the house basically and set on fire. Pretty important. Anyway, these devices are basically taking that grounding socket and extracting the earth's negative ions and the energy from the earth. So on a spiritual level, we all, like a lot of people, know that there is such an energy to this earth, and there's a lot more than just negative ions. But on a scientific level, what they've really been able to notice is the negative ions that helps alkaline your blood, helps, actually what it does is it can reduce inflammation in your body up to 75%. I mean, that's like
Isn't that cool?
huge. I mean, that's huge, right? And so they have amazing case studies where people with arthritis no longer have it. People with plantar fasciitis, which I have, flat feet, we need orthotics to walk, no longer need them. But then, of course, and so tons of physical benefits. People, I mean, like extreme examples, tumors, things, cancers, gone, things like that. But then sleep, insomnia, gone after grounding for a couple of days straight, having these sleeping mats, so on and so forth. I mean, deep emotional pains and issues, not maybe gone, but certainly massively alleviated, again, by like 75% or something. So check out, for those listening, another solution. I mean, it's great for us to talk about all this stuff that we're moving through, but I also love to focus on like, well, what the hell can you do right here, right now? And we've talked about lots of stuff: meditation, yoga, music, all these great things. But earthing, go
Yeah.
figure. Plug yourself back into good old Mother Earth and receive her beautiful healing
Yeah.
energies
Right in your body.
right in your office, your home. I mean, this plugs into the electrical circuitry, so you can do this anywhere. That's the beauty of it. So you don't have to just go outside and take off your shoes, which I highly recommend because it's just feels so damn good. I go to the park usually every day and just take off the second I'm on the grass, take off my shoes. I'm like, just give me some reflexology and some nice negative ions, and I always feel better no matter what. Even if it's just like a 5% increase. I mean, who wouldn't want a nice little, even just a little 5%
Yeah.
increase?
When
Like,
you're
I'll
when
take
you're
it.
running on empty, 5% is a lot.
A lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My particular physical type of being needs to have my feet in the sand. I literally have to go to the beach, and walk on the sand. And when I can't do that frequently, I find that I'm less inspired, more tired, et cetera, right? It's just a way of being able to rinse the accumulation of stuff by putting it back on the ground, literally putting it back on the ground, coming to ground.
It's the best. I mean, like, I've done it for years. I think lots of us, again, listening, probably can be like, yeah, I mean, it does feel so good to walk through the sand. I'm lucky too, as well, being on the West Coast here, to have the sand, the ocean, and just walking by, all of that and just feeling great. But you don't think about, why. And so on earthing.com, you can check out, they have a short version and a long version of this documentary, both really worthwhile watching. And they pretty much exclusively interview just scientists and doctors. So you're getting nothing but the science, and obviously some great case studies. And one of the lines that really stuck out to me was, and this is of course just the wisdom of the beautiful, First Nations people that were here well before us, on this continent, and of course all around the world. I'm sure they share the similar knowledge, which was the earth is here to heal you, not to disconnect from, because dirty and bugs are gross and it's cold, and like, I mean, yes, I've camped in some harsh conditions, and I know Mother Nature can be very unforgiving, and I have a huge respect for her, but she's also extremely healing, and we are part of the earth. We are creatures of this earth. So when we disconnect, we do get sick. And one of the founder of earthing.com and these products and stuff, and this is sort of the new, I guess, the resurgence of this research. He was saying that when he was a kid, he would hang out with some of his friends who lived on a native reserve, and he would go into the teepees of some of his friends' families. And I remember there's one point in particular when one of the moms looks at him, she's like, "Take off your shoes, they'll make you sick." And he's just like, "What? Take off my shoes, they'll make me sick." I've never heard that before. And here he comes, like decades later, and comes back into this knowledge of grounding and earthing. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, maybe our shoes do make us sick." And that's something I never would have thought logically. My shoes make me sick. Maybe my shoes hurt my feet, but not that they make me sick.
If they're not leather, if they're a synthetic product, it separates us, from contact.
The ancient shoes that used to exist. So I have a friend of mine, he runs marathons, and he runs in these kind of recreated Olympian sandals from like ancient Greece.
Oh my gosh. Because I have a pair of those.
Okay.
It's the same manufacturer, but
maybe though he bought it
made from old tires.
That's interesting, because I think I don't know what leather of some kind that the sole, like the actual shoe aspect of it, and it's a sandal. It's like one that attaches like nicely to your feet, but then where the sort of straps from the sandal, how they come into like the sole, the actual shoe component, and then usually there's that part that connects and then is on the bottom, the bottom part of the shoe. There's a piece of copper, so it's made out of copper.
Nice.
So that part's copper, and that's what allows the connection. Plus, I guess the material of the actual shoe itself is not synthetic. So there's a whole bunch of things connecting him to the earth. So when he goes on his runs, he's always running in these sandals, and he's like, "Dude, it doesn't make sense, but like I run way better, further, more energy." I mean, these things, and it looks so primitive.
Email me a link on those, because I would love to put that in the show notes as well as all the other stuff I've been collecting on our way through here.
Well, on the Earthing website, I don't know if they have the running versions, but they definitely have sandals that are grounding for sure. But yeah, these ones are like really cool.
Say, I'm wondering right now, and we can edit this later on, but what do you think about closing out this particular podcast episode with a guided meditation?
Ooh, that's a great idea, Bill.
And I don't know if I'm just poking around in music here, but let's keep it under 5 minutes. How about if we use Cloud Factory from your 432 CD?
Sure.
You want to lead it? I'll mute. And
okay.
So here's Cloud Factory, and you know when it ends. So after it wraps, we'll be out.
All right. So it's just under 5 minutes, and
you got good audio there?
Yep, I can hear it.
Sweet.
in and out. Breathing in, breathing out. Just follow your breath. Let it find its own rhythm. Let your thoughts go and be whatever they need to be. Just focus on the in and then the out. Continue to breathe throughout this very quick meditation. I won't guide anymore. Just focus on your breath. We'll see you at the end. There you have it.
Yeah, that changed up my energy, man.
That did actually. You know, it's funny. I was like, this got a lot of rhythm to it. For most meditation music, I find is usually atmospheric, but then I'm like, actually, it's really kind of fun to meditate to a more rhythmic piece of music. That was fun.
No
Thanks,
mistakes.
Bill. No mistakes. Exactly. Only happy accidents.
I'll post a link so people can find the music on Spotify. And gosh, man, thank you for this.
Oh, right. Likewise, Bill. Thank you. Appreciate it as always.
Like, it's such a great opportunity to explore some stuff, and I always find my energy is shifted after our conversations, and the music just sort of like amplified that. So thank you in so many ways.
Thank you too. Thank you in so many ways. And I think we should continue this meditation as like each episode, just close it off with it's a great idea.
Close it out with a little guided meditation over music.
Why not?
And if you've got music you want us to use, drop it on us. We'll see if we can work it in, right?
Absolutely.
There's incredible music out there these days. I can't believe the creative surge that's happening in the industry. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You're part of that. I'm part of that.
Yeah.
Good to be
happy
here.
to be part of it. Thank you, Bill. I feel better too. I was feeling a little rough before this podcast recording. So those of you listening, if you're feeling rough, maybe just start a podcast with a good friend.
Yeah, that'll work.
That'll work.
Make more content. Feed the algorithm.
Feed it. No, if it feeds you, then it's all good.
It's all good. And it does. And thank you, Chris, because it does.
Thank you, Bill. You take care, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Aho.
Aho.
Thank you for listening in on our conversation and for taking time to show your appreciation with a like, share, or subscribe. Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness is a practice of spontaneity, and we welcome your comments, ideas, and questions. There are ways to connect with us in the show notes, so let us hear from you. Until next time, this is Bill Protzman along with Chris Noble wishing you great musical health. Samara Huchaya.